This video is a free sample taken from one of the action reference breakdown lessons in my 2D/3D storyboarding masterclass course. Studying great films like this can help inform us in terms of structure, staging, character motivation, shot choice and camera language, the flow of the edit, and so on. It's about trying to understand what is going on from both inside the camera framing and from outside the camera in the physical staging across the action. The reference I'll be breaking down for this lesson will be roughly the first half of the cave troll fight in The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. We've got really great interaction between the Fellowship versus that troll. There's a progression and variation across the scene, some clear handovers between the characters. It has a good balance and variety of shot types, thinking about our scene anatomy, some excellent escalation and environmental changes, and generally just really good use of the space for staging, and very consistent screen direction across constantly moving action. The first thing I want to touch on is the camera language. It's very handheld. It's very in the moment with the characters, boots on the ground, nothing grand or showy. So what does it do? What is this kind of camera language doing for us here? Well, I feel immersed. I'm not there, but I feel like I'm there. It's dirty. I'm in there with them. The cameras are low and in with the characters' perspectives mainly. When I use this term dirty, I'm referring to things like the framing, the motion. Nothing's perfect here. We aren't on a beautiful composition for very long, for example. These aren't big glorious vistas where we're sat on a beautiful composition and breathing the world in. This is down and dirty in the trenches. All the camera work here and the shot choices are in absolute service to the moment, is that he wants us to feel like they feel, to feel on the back foot, to feel the roughness of the action, to feel the chaos of the scene. It's a very deliberately staged and shot scene in a very specific environment, and it makes brilliant use of that environment in here as well. I began my breakdown by using the same scene anatomy contact sheet method I have done previously. And I don't want to spend too long on this here, as I really want to get into the shot-by-shot details over this, but I think it's important to just check in with it to see if we can identify things quickly from it. There's a good spread of shots here, plenty of close-ups for connections to the characters, to keep that emotion going, to hit key emotional beats, and to tether the change in focus as we move through different characters or character groups. There's a good peppering of medium shots to help ground the physicality throughout, so we know where we are relative to the nearby environment. There are a number of good solid wide shots to help orient and later reorientate ourselves in space as the action moves around and to help sell the scale of the troll and the space of the environment. Everything has its place and it's a very well balanced scene in that regard. I really want to get into the shot by shot breakdown here because that's where all the detail is. I also have this staging plan over here, which I'll refer to or call out at certain points throughout the action. I'm not going to talk about everything from that perspective, but I will stop and call out big staging changes that happen that I think are worth talking about. Now, of course, there was a bit of setup before this, right? They've been in the room for a while. The goblins all come through and there's a bit of a scuffle there already. So we'll start around here. We have this high medium close on Sam seeing something coming, followed by a close-up of Aragorn doing the same. Just a moment of anticipation as we hear the troll coming. It's the kind of tail end of a number of build-up shots that have happened building up to this moment. And now the troll is going to show up. So he's dragged in on a chain. Now that's a nice little storytelling detail in itself. It means he's been brought here against his will. So that already sets up the kind of dynamic between the smaller characters who are bringing him in and the troll itself. It's a very explosive entrance. There's a drama to this entrance as it explodes through the door. We have to find ways to make an entrance dramatic or interesting. It could be all in the build-up, but it could also be explosive like this. The shot starts relative to the goblins in the composition as wide, but for the troll it's more of a medium shot. But as it bursts into the shot, we end up in a close-up of it as it comes towards camera. So we're surprised by the entrance and then it's right up and close and personal with the enemy immediately. We see its ugly face, we see the spit and everything. Then to tether our responses to the hero characters immediately and make that connection between them and us, we cut to a series of character reactions to see how they all react. We're into Boromir first, who's first swinging around from what he was doing with a real sort of shocked expression on his face, caught off guard a little in the moment. Then, to contrast that and communicate something different about another character, we cut to Legolas, but a very different reaction there. Legolas is calm and composed and he's ready to go. He's already got his bow ready, primed and loaded and aiming directly at the troll. Legolas is an elf, so much more composed in posture and emotion. So it's not just about the shot choices you make, it's about what you do within them, how each of those characters responds differently. He fires the arrow here and we cut on that action to see where it went. the cause and effect immediately apparent. We see that reaction straight away, and then the troll moves forward, motivating the cut into the next shot, using motion to carry us across the cut. So you can see already now how these cut on actions and these beginning to move in one shot carries you into the next shot. That's what cutting on action gives you. Then we're into this low wide shot from behind Sam. The troll was shot by Legolas, but the troll doesn't know that, so it just lunges for the first person it sees, which is Sam. This is our first shot where we get more scale reference. So this is a very important one in terms of establishing the scale of the troll versus our characters here. There's Aragorn there, Boromir here, and Sam in the foreground. We can read that environment fairly clearly. This is a pretty wide angle lens here to take all this in, especially given the size difference. One of the ways you can tell that is because of the size differences in the perspective in Zed's space here. You can see that our foreground characters are much bigger than our midground characters, which are then, relative to the troll, relative to the background characters. We will typically do this in action with wide framing, with wide angle lenses, because you want to convey more about the environment and get more in frame. It sets up the immediate staging here of the characters that we are going to focus in for the next few beats, who are Sam, Aragorn, and Boromir, the troll, and we know Legolas is somewhere nearby and capable of ranged attacks. Sam is the character we focus on next, so before we start that moving, we check in with him emotionally with his close-up. Close-ups are there for us to connect with characters, to see his reaction. Sam is clearly worried here. He has never encountered a troll before in this film, so we get that fear, but he is also being brave, which is something we see in Sam grow throughout the entire trilogy, and we see that shift in his performance here from fear to bravery. Again, like the troll, he lunges forward in this shot, and we cut on that action to the wide to continue that action forward. We come back to the same framing and setup we had previously, so this would be the same camera. And if you were shooting this live action, or even in CGI, you would actually shoot all of this action of the previous shot and this shot within one camera setup, and then the insert of Sam would be inserted in edit into the middle of that. You wouldn't set up a brand new camera for this moment because you've already set this camera up a moment ago for the previous wide. You would use the same camera. But now, because we've already used this setup earlier for establishment, when we come back to it, we can very quickly go straight into action, because the second time we come back to it is not for establishment, it's for the progression within that shot. That action being here, the club coming down to get Sam, but he dashes forward over to the right through his legs. So whereas he was on the screen left to start with the troll on the right, now Sam has changed his position to be on screen right by the end, the troll left, because they've crossed over. As we move forward across the next set of shots, we will pay attention to that screen direction that exists between the troll and Sam as the action progresses. From a staging plan point of view, what happens here is, here's the doorway that he's come in on the furthest right of the plan. We'll call this stage right. The overall space of this section is something like this. This is broadly the room. The troll comes in, Aragorn is around here, Boromir is somewhere here, Legolas is somewhere up here on these ledges, Gandalf is fighting somewhere around here, and most important for these beats, Sam and the troll are here at this moment. Those are the only characters that we actually need to know about right now, because those are the characters we're focusing on. Everyone else is off shot, so we don't need to worry about any of those yet. As Sam lunges forward, stage right, he goes underneath the troll, and the troll moves left as he goes to hit him. So they've changed sides now, both in the staging and the screen direction wise. So from this point onwards, until that changes, that should be maintained between them. Following that through to the next cut, which is another wide shot. This is the reverse wide shot now of the framing we were on. So as you can see, we're looking towards the door in the previous shot. Now we're looking from an angle that's more like the camera's over by the door area looking back into the room. So here on the plan, this is roughly where the camera is in this shot, looking back into the room. The troll turns now, facing stage and screen right now, so another change. He's still screen left, but now he's turning to screen right to pursue Sam. So he's going to follow Sam here, and this camera move here has gone from a wide shot at the start of the framing the entire environment up, and then as the troll turns and follows, the camera then tilts up to a low angle medium close framing on the troll, facing right still, because that's where Sam went. So we end the framing feeling quite overpowered by the troll, and then in the next shot, in order to emphasize that, we actually cut sort of to the troll's point of view here, where we're looking down on Sam in a high angle to make him look overpowered in a weak position. We want Sam to feel threatened, and anytime we see Sam, for him to look threatened. So then we're into the really low angle close-up of the troll again here, maintaining that power difference. We feel threatened by this, right, visually. But across this repeating motif here, because we've we've already had this kind of framing a moment ago and we come back to it, so we have a progression here too. It's not just cutting to the same shot and nothing progresses. Each time we move the scene onward, here the progression is that up comes the foot into the frame. The troll about to stamp on us and Sam. The foot is now dominating this center right area of the frame, so our eye is drawn there naturally. Then when we cut, who is also there? Who's where our eye is? Sam. That is the focal point across the cut. Where our eye ends in the one shot is where it starts on the next shot, and it's where it wants to be. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's round about the same area. So our eye is already in the right place. We come off as looking at the threat in this frame, then cut to a character that is being threatened. The shadow is covering him of that foot. This course was created in close collaboration with the awesome team at artward.com. Artward believes that everyone has the potential to express themselves through art, no matter their background or experience level. It's a philosophy I really share. Their mission is to redefine art education by making it accessible, fun, and engaging for all, from passionate hobbyists to future professionals. Artward is the perfect companion to my own teaching, including this course. Why? Because they cover the foundational skills that I don't: drawing fundamentals and core design principles. Solid fundamentals are what allow us to bring our ideas to life. Artward offers a powerful platform to build those skills, all while tracking your progress through a motivating and seamless learning experience. No matter where you're starting from, improving your drawing fundamentals with Artward will unlock huge growth in your 2D, 3D storyboarding abilities. On Artward, you'll find easy-to-follow learning paths covering everything from drawing characters, portraits, and environments to storytelling and visual design. These paths are tailored to your goals with a strong focus on essentials like spatial awareness, form, shading, and composition. Getting started is simple. Just sign up, choose a path, and dive in. The lessons are structured like games with fun challenges and workouts where you can track your progress, earn rewards, and learn at your own pace. You can be confident that every step in the Artward roadmap is taking you closer to your creative goals. As part of my collaboration with Artward, you can now get a special discount. Just use my link in the description below and start leveling up your fundamentals. So we're on Sam. Shadow is over him, close up so we can read what's important, his emotional response. He's looking very scared and he winces, and then it cuts away to this, which is a mid shot, like a mid-2 shot of Aragorn and Boromir, who have grabbed the chain. Now we understand the chains, we saw them earlier, we know they're attached to the troll. So that connection is made. Staging wise, it's something like this. Boromir and Aragorn are here, chain here, troll here, Sam here. Right now, these are the only characters we need to care about. So what happens next? They pull to the left because they are on the left of the staging and the established screen direction. Then we cut again back to that shot we already had set up of the troll with its leg raised. They pull. He's yanked to the left because they were on the left and he was on right. So they pull left, he moves left. It's consistent. The foot is pulled away and the threat is halted. Then we cut to a close-up of Sam here. Then to a 2-shot insert here where the guy's struggling and pulling that chain. Then we're into this wide shot here, which does quite a lot of work here. It helps set up the next chunk of staging and action while actually finishing off this particular beat. So we're finishing one beat and moving and setting up something for future beats in this shot. Does quite a lot. It's a re-establish and a turning point in the staging and story. So the troll was focusing on Sam, but now they've pulled that troll away, turns him around clumsily. So Sam can kind of be left alone for a while now. We've kind of done with Sam's beat for the moment. He's out of immediate harm. His beat is done for now. We'll be moving on to a few different characters for the moment. Now within this shot, we also set up Gimli. So we know where he is, even though his main beat doesn't happen just yet. It's planting that seed in the audience's mind. It's planting that staging. Gimli is here. Remember that. We'll see him shortly. So sometimes, even if you're not about to get to that character's moment, you can set that up in the staging or an establishing shot so that you know you're kind of just reminding the audience where people are. Let's look at what this looks like staging plan wise again now, because it's a bit of a new setup. So where is Gimli? So he's on top of the tomb here. That's in the center of the room, established in the moments before all this action happened. He's about here. Boromir and Aragorn around here. Troll here. Sam's about there. Camera is looking here through them at the troll from behind Gimli and co. Our camera is looking here. Gimli is actually screen right here. The troll is fairly center at this moment, and then the other guys are over on the left. So let's see how that tracks moving forward. We cut to Boromir here, medium framing, chain prominent in frame, meaning it's important. Aragorn seems to have let go of the chain here and has spun away to fight nearby orcs. I suspect that's a result of editing rather than continuity, but live action is like that. Boromir is still on the left. Quick glance to the chain, realizing he might be in trouble here. Then cut to the wide angle here. Him left, troll right. Camera position wise, this is roughly the same angle as we were just in, just further in. We've taken a few steps forward here. You can tell that because Gimli isn't on shot anymore, right? And we can't see the tomb. I would guess roughly about here, since we don't get him in shot. The troll then swings the chain hard, and this throws Boromir over to the extreme right of frame, over into this wall. And just look at this camera work here, right? Look how rough this is. It's basically just motion blur, the entire thing. Live action, especially when you study it, you may be surprised at just how much of what you perceive as clear motion when moving is actually just very, very motion blurred action. The troll pulls him, whips him across very, very clearly, thrown to screen right now. So where they leave their relationship is the troll is screen left, and now Boromir has been thrown all the way over past everyone to screen right. This is another cut on action here. He's about to hit the wall in the wide. Then we cut on that action to get to the impact of the medium shot here. Hitting that wall there, gets knocked back, stumbles, falls onto the ground. Look at how rough this camera work is here. So he stumbles now to the ground again, and another cut on action here for him to hit the ground. So very, very rough. Let's talk a little bit about the rough camera work across those shots before talking about where this all leaves us staging plan wise. The camera feels rough because it's like the camera operator is trying to catch up to the action leading the camera, which is always a great rule to follow, because if something's moving quickly, or there's a change of direction, or you were trying to film or even track this with your eyes if you were there, you would be slightly behind the action. You could predict roughly where it was going to go, but not track it perfectly. That creates this sort of rubber banding effect between the subject that's moving and the camera that's following it. There is this delay. Then if the subject stops or changes direction, the camera catches up, overshoots, and then settles or keeps catching up in the new direction. If you want to achieve this effect, this kind of delayed overshoot catch up type of effect, a simple trick is basically to set your camera up to follow the action normally, then just delay your camera keyframes by a few frames, like 3 or 4 frames, and that will get you there quite quickly, and you can then finesse from there. So we will go back to where we are in our staging plan. Boromir is now around here. He was here, and across that throw, he's now been slung across the stage into this wall and ends up around here. So he's down, he's in trouble, he's knocked out even here temporarily. So what do? We cut back to another character, back to Aragorn. Aragorn turns, he's seen Boromir is in trouble. Series of quick cuts here to hit home the immediate threat. So Boromir wakes, sees the goblin with a knife, cut to the reaction, quick cuts to intensify the drama, high angles on Boromir, low on the goblin, enforcing the power dynamic in this particular moment. Then we cut back to Aragorn, who throws the dagger or sword in a whip pan, landing in the goblin's neck, killing it. This feels like one shot, but it's two. The whip pan from Aragorn feels like it is connected to this shot by the motion of the whip pan and the motion of the knife, as we pan from him to the subject very quickly, and it feels like that's actually the same shot. It's like I showed in the camera shots refresher, this is just a pan, so it's just a rotation on this axis, like the turning of a head, right? The actual camera didn't move, it just turned on that axis to look from Aragorn to the goblin, but really, really fast. So that's where you get all this extreme motion blur. So this is a great technique. I'm definitely going to use this at one point in my action to connect 2 shots together. You can close enormous distances with whip pans like this. It's great. Boromir now saved. Quick close-ups of recognition and gratitude, and then that beat is done, and then we're on to the next. Now, it's a beat with Gimli. So we remember earlier on, we set him up in the staging. We haven't immediately followed up on that, but now we're going to, and we already know where he was. He was standing on the tomb, but here we are checking in with him first to get our heads into, it's Gimli time now, right? We're going to cut to a close-up, say, Gimli's go now, and then we're going to cut to other shots relating to Gimli, and to read the action of throwing his axe. He is screen right here, facing screen left, which is still actually consistent with how we set him up initially. And he's winding up to toss this from the right to the left of screen. Then we cut to the next shot, big wide angle again, re-establishing the broader staging again here and their relationship to one another. You can see every now and again you have to come back to one of these wide shots in here after a string of close-ups and medium shots to keep your staging clear. So then we've got is the troll on the center left moving screen right. The axe arcs through shot from right to left, the same direction it was thrown, following that energy from Gimli's close-up throw through into this. In terms of what I talked about in the 180 lesson, this is consistent screen direction, so no 180 break here. But let's look at what this would run like if we flip and break the 180 here. So he throws it from screen right to screen left. The correct version would continue screen right to screen left. Then let's flip that second shot. So it goes from throwing screen right to left and then to the flip wide with screen left to screen right. Which is clearer, which is better. It's the consistent version, right? One of the reasons I avoid breaking the 180 during action is that it wastes energy and interrupts the flow of the action, right? The energy here is built up on the right of frame and is being thrown to the left of frame. Then, when you cut, all that energy follows through and the impact makes sense. Whereas the other way around, it doesn't flow and you waste all that energy, right? So there's an example of how sticking to the 180 is really essential once you've established a screen direction between two things, in this case, the troll and Gimli. I would say this way of just flipping a shot in the middle, a really good way of you seeing and testing it for yourself. So if you are evaluating a scene and you've got a flowing action across two shots or a number of shots, just try what I've done here. Just flip that middle shot or one of the shots and see the damage it does to the flow of the action. Okay, back to the scene progression. Back to this wide. This one's a really wide angle lens here, so we want to take in as much of everything as we can. Initially, our focus is on the framing of the ogre here to re-establish that. The axe hits, then he gets angry, then the camera tilts up while pulling back. Feels like the camera operator here is stepping backwards to include Gimli. Really handheld feel here. So we've got that really threatening framing on the troll here. The hammer goes right up and underneath it is Gimli on screen right. Then it's going to come down, but because the director or the camera operator here wants to make sure we see that he's going to smash down on that tomb there, he really wants you to see Gimli positioned on it before that happens. So that impact comes down, smashes the tomb, and Gimli leaps up, and he's out of shot here for a moment, but that's fine, it's great. These things happen chaotically and organically. You can't track everything every time, so you have to kind of make a decision about what you want to frame. And in this case, they've chosen that they want to frame the tomb, and so Gimli kind of goes in and out of shot here very quickly. Don't feel like you have to keep the characters on screen all the time. The emphasis was just on letting that impact and that change in the environment happen, and then he lands towards the camera, framing again for Gimli, so you can kind of momentarily let them go away and then you can catch up to them or they can drop back into frame. The camera work is really rough here, imperfect, but it still feels natural. To me, that's such a beautiful sweet spot to try and hit. You know, we're contriving this, right? That's all we're doing all the time, is contriving everything the way we want it to be, but we also want it to feel natural. And this is a perfect example of a shot that does that balance very, very well. Now Gimli ends pretty neutral here screen direction wise. He and the troll are both fairly centerish at the end of the frame. Then we have this disconnected group shot of the hobbits hiding behind a pillar. I'm actually not sure where this is in the staging right now. I have a fair idea, but I'm not going to talk about that. It doesn't really matter right now, right? This actually feels like more of a cutaway at the moment, right? But that actually doesn't matter right now because they're not our focus, right? It's just an insert. But this shot gives us a few things. What does it give us? Okay, so it acts as a cutaway of sorts to give a moment of respite, a quick breather from the relentless intensity of the action. Sometimes for pacing, you will need to find a way to put these in. Second, it also acts as a reminder of what the main warriors are fighting for, who they are fighting for, who they are fighting to protect. So that may be why it's in there as well. It's just reminders of those characters we're fighting for. It may also have been edited in there to hide an awkward cut, because sometimes that is what we do. Perhaps they actually wanted initially to stay with Gimli immediately, but they found that the footage they had was taking too long, so they just thought, right, just put an insert in and we can come back to Gimli wherever we want him then, right? Because remember, as soon as you put a cutaway in here to something else, within reason, you know, you can reset certain characters and certain positionings, right? So then we cut straight back into this really quick cut of Gimli hacking away, now stood up, very rough and short. So you see what I mean by having that cutaway in there? You didn't have to show him get up, you didn't have to show him like turn around, you didn't have to show the orcs he's fighting, didn't have to show any of that. It's just accepted that you cut away to something for a moment, and when you cut back, stuff's changed. That's a really great way to get yourself out of trouble sometimes, is having a cutaway or a disconnected shot like that. So again, he stood up, it's very rough and short, then we're back into yet another really wide shot, quite busy this time. We have Gimli fighting some goblins in the mid-ground, then the troll is still pursuing him, swinging his club wildly, actually taking out some of the enemies for him here, and eventually toppling Gimli over too. But an extra setup detail here in the background, up on the platform, is Legolas. Your eye is not naturally going to go there, but it's been deliberately set up in the staging so that you can at least see him and that his next beats are going to move on from here. So staging plan wise, he's up here, Gimli somewhere around here, troll here. We set Legolas up in the background. You probably didn't notice him. You wouldn't have noticed him on the first go round, but he's definitely there. And then when we cut to Legolas, we understand immediately he's already set up here to help Gimli from a high vantage point and a ranged firing position, right, to lay down supporting fire, which is what we've already seen him do once already. So he shoots his bow here, and we cut on that action to the wide shot. You barely read the arrows here, but the impacts are there. You don't really need to read the arrows hitting because you get the reaction of the troll. Cause and effect immediately. You get the toppling back of the troll, and you put those two things together. Arrows shot, troll toppling backwards, you understand. I would say here, I think this could have done with being slightly clearer. Like, if, for my taste, I think I would have at least started the framing a little higher so that you could see those arrows going in and you really read that clearly before moving the shot onwards. But it does work, right? You can see the cause and effect can still work even if the framing is quite rough and dirty. So toward the end of the shot, our framing focuses then back onto Gimli, handing our attention over to him for a beat. Then we cut to a medium shot of Gandalf for a very brief moment here as he's carving up some goblins. It's super rough, super handheld, like a punctuation shot here. It's both a rhythm thing for the edit, and it is to remind us that, hey, there's other people fighting here as well. But without drawing too much attention to it and drawing our focus away from what we've just set up, which is Legolas and the troll. It's just a reminder, again, like the cutaway, of there are other characters involved in this. So you just, every now and again, you pepper one in to just say, hey, here's this character, here's that character. So we're on this mid-framing here of Legolas as he does all these fancy spinning and fighting these two goblins up in here. And then there's a quick cut to another medium there and then into a close-up. That is a nice rhythm to it, right? This suits the action. It suits the cuts of his action against the goblins. Like cut, right? In that close-up, he then turns his attention. So let's follow the screen direction here across these shots. So back in that medium shot, we had the goblin on the right, him on the left, and he's on that far wall now over there, right? Staging wise, I think he was up here a minute ago, and then, you know, within wherever, he's moved over to this side here, right? So he's on this wall. And then when he was off shot, he's kind of, we can just accept, right, that he's moved over here now and he's fighting them up there, right? Which is another thing, you know, you can do. I'm talking about that reset, right? When you cut away to different characters, you can reset or just slightly change where your other characters are when you cut back to them. He's taking these guys out. You can see, looking right here, that he was fighting this goblin, but then his attention is drawn back to screen left. What we're doing here is we're setting up, establishing a new screen direction where the emphasis is on Legolas and the troll and the interaction they're going to have together. So if I then show you where we are in that staging in terms of where the camera is now roughly here. A pretty wide lens actually, because he's taking in all this environment, and Legolas is here over the shoulder with Legolas. And we can see the troll, and then we can see Gandalf off in the background. So if we compare this to where our cameras were set up earlier and starting off with the earlier beats, right? Where they were set up and what side of like the initial staging direction they were, right? And now we're all the way around here. And you can see how much the camera is going to be moving around the staging as the action and the cameras move around. It's much more complex than a simple static setup. The 180 isn't a static thing in an action scene. As characters and cameras move around one another, repositioning, shifting emphasis. We have to be able to cover that freely. We don't want to box ourselves in. And the way to do that is to ensure that the screen direction, once established for a particular setup or beat, in this case Legolas versus the troll, you need to keep that consistent across consecutive shots for clarity, and not to break the 180 across those shots. It isn't about going, here on shot 1, I've drawn a line down here and I can never put the camera across there across the entire scene. It's not that at all. It's about establishing screen direction, and then as things move around, you being able to smartly move yourself around that environment with both the action and the cameras in order to keep that all clear. We change screen direction to lead into these setups like here. All it takes is for Legolas to go from looking screen right, fighting the goblins, to then turning his head to look screen left, and we've changed the screen direction in a tiny little head turn. So now when we cut over the shoulder of Legolas, he's looking screen left. And that's perfectly consistent and perfectly fine. It doesn't matter that 20 shots ago we were over the other side of the screen. It doesn't matter that 10 shots ago we were somewhere else entirely and the camera was on a different direction. What matters is the localized sequence of shots that need that consistency. So now we've set this up, Legolas on the right, troll on the left. This is giving you a broad, wide-angle lens framing here, so you can read the action that's happening here, which is all about the cave troll swinging his chain and trying to hit Legolas. But he ducks underneath it for the first time, so he's quite surprised by that. But now he knows what to expect, Legolas. This happens a number of times, and this will repeat and develop across the next few shots. We have these kind of 3-shot setup thing going on here, roughly, that we keep coming back to, which is this shot with the wide OTS, this reaction shot, or a similar one of Legolas, and then this shot, which is a wide from the troll side. So he'll do this multiple times now, different actions, as Legolas basically learns the pattern so he can exploit and to find the opening. But across each of these shots, there's always a progression, or there's always a change that then leads us forward across the scene. It doesn't just the same beat for like 4 shots and, multiple times, right? Different things happen across this progression. The chain itself is a nice progression, since the troll was using a club earlier, and now it's using a chain like a whip for some variety. We have to look for finding these opportunities. This is like the chain whip phase of the fight now, right? So he's escalated. So again, it goes whip, it whips and slashes out. Legolas ducks under again, and he pulls himself up off the ground. So it's the same principle, right? Cutting back to him, seeing his reaction. He's reading a little more into the situation. Back to this shot. Every time this happens, there's an escalation or change. So now he's whipping downwards because he's figured out, well, I missed last time. I need to do something different. So then when that vertical slash comes down, it makes this part of the environment probably a little unstable as well. Then we cut again to Legolas, very, very, very roughly here. We just briefly cut in with him. Then we're back to that over-the-shoulder framing now. He's actually moved back across now. A little bit of a cheat or jump there in the staging, but it works fine. You wouldn't notice that on the first viewing. The troll winds up for one last swing. Back to the troll side wide. Again, repeating. See how much we're getting out of these same setups and cameras here. Then the chain hits the pillar and wraps around it. Like another change yet again now, right? We had horizontal, we've had vertical, now we've got the chain is wrapped around. It embeds it into the pillar in some way, like as if maybe the troll was going to try and pull that down in a moment. But Legolas sees that. Now, remember where Legolas was in the last shot? Legolas was left of the pillar to the right. Legolas now looking down to the right and down, and stands on it, firming his footing up. Camera whip pans back up to him as he turns from screen right pillar to screen left troll, already established earlier, and he runs up it screen left. We cut on action to that. So then in the wide shot, repeating that shot setup again to see him run up the chain with a cut on action. Again, escalation, change, use of the environment, use of an ability, use of the threat, so it's now to his advantage. He's turned the situation around and now he's clambering up onto the troll. And then we have a series of shots here, a close up now for him to like really get that aiming in. So we can read that concentration on his face. He's really trying to get this right, this aiming right. Then it cuts to a mid framing, a tilt down, and he fires. It doesn't do much, unfortunately, but it was a good effort. We can give him 5 stars for effort for that, definitely, right? Then we cut to this kind of reverse shot of that now, and he's trying to clamber off him. The troll was trying to grab him, and then Legolas just jumps down for a dismount. And that's the end of that beat. That's kind of roughly, I would say, the halfway mark somewhere-ish of the fight there. And that's the end of my shot-by-shot demonstration breakdown of this. So I think personally, I think this scene, even the front half of this scene like this, is quite a masterpiece. You can see the way, all of the amount of thought that's gone into this, right? And the staging and the planning and everything, and the escalation and the variation. There's plenty of great stuff that comes after this as well, especially, you know, with regards to like the storytelling moments with Frodo and everything, and the climax where it all comes together. But this is where I'm having to leave it now, purely for lesson duration considerations. This is the kind of level of detail I would like you to study scenes at. Really try and contextualize everything. Try and understand the why behind the decisions on screen. Action is this balancing act, like a dance and choreography between the camera, the staging, the action, the performance, the cinematography, the story, the edit. It's all happening at the same time. I think by watching scenes like this and kind of just allowing yourself to immerse yourself in the study of them, you will really get an appreciation for the thought processes and the execution of scenes like this so that you can apply them to your own work.